Welcome to the MAT Chat. My name is Cori Hamilton, and I'm a first-year Master of Athletic Training student at North Central College in Naperville, Illinois. The title of this episode is Conflict Resolution in Athletic Training. Today, we will be discussing common conflicts that an athletic trainer is likely to face in their clinical practice and how to resolve them. I am joined by two guests today, Dr. Alicia Pike-Lacy and Dr. Stephanie M. Singe. Dr. Pike-Lacy is an assistant professor of athletic training in the College of Education and Human Development at the University of Maine. Dr. Pike-Lacy also does work as a reviewer for the Journal of Athletic Training, International Journal of Athletic Therapy and Training, Clinical Practice in Athletic Training Journal, and the Journal of Science and Medicine in Sport. In addition, Dr. Pike-Lacy serves as a member of the NATA Foundation Educational Resources Committee and Maine Athletic Trainers Association Education Committee. Dr. Pike-Lacy's research areas of expertise include unlearning and organizational professional conflict in athletic training practice. Dr. Singe is currently an associate professor in the Department of Kinesiology at the University of Connecticut. Dr. Singe's research areas of expertise include survey methods and quantitative methodologies, as well as barriers in athletic training, particularly in the secondary school setting. Dr. Singe has also received second runner-up for the Clint Thompson Award for Clinical Advancement in 2011 for two of her publications related to exertional heat stroke and evidence-based practice. Both Dr. Pike-Lacy and Dr. Singe have affiliations with the Cori Stringer Institute at the University of Connecticut, dedicated to research in heat and hydration, injury prevention, and strength and conditioning for athletes, laborers, and warfighters. Dr. Pike-Lacy, Dr. Singe, welcome and thank you for joining me today.
Thanks, Cori. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you.
As mentioned before, today we will be discussing conflict resolution in athletic training. We will be discussing three subtopics related to different types of conflict in athletic training. The first type is organizational conflict, and later we will discuss interprofessional as well as interpersonal conflict. Moving into organizational conflict, in one of my recent courses, we talked about the three different organizational models in athletic training. The athletic model, in which the AT reports directly to the athletic director, the medical model, in which the AT reports to a medical director, and the academic model, in which the AT reports to the director of sports medicine, but is still connected and works in tandem with the athletic training academic program. All three models have their own pros and cons, as I've learned. In your expertise, what do you believe is the best organizational model of the three in order to reduce conflict for athletic trainers, and why?
It's a great question. Steph, do you want me to go first? Or do you want to go first?
Doesn't matter. I'll defer to my mentee and you can make the decision. You want me to be on the hot seat or you can?
Oh, I'm happy to be on the hot seat for the first question. And then I guess if she agrees with whatever, or disagrees or agrees, with whatever I bring up, then she can chime in, but I'd love to hear her opinion anyways. So Cori, I think if I honestly had to pick one, I'd pick the medical model. And when I think back to my clinical practice experiences, just for those who might be listening in and are curious, I practiced at a high school and then at UConn Club Sports. And I think UConn Club Sports is a little bit unique, but at the high school, if I had to give it a model, it would probably be the athletics model because I was reporting to the athletic director. And the reason I say the medical model is because I think a lot of conflict that occurs in athletic training practice is because there are really big competing interests at play. And thinking, I think, mostly about the athletic model, which I would say is the one I was practicing at pretty much when I was at the high school. I didn't ever work clinically at a true college. In club sports, yes, but not in like Division I athletics or NCAA sponsored athletics. But when I think about the athletic model, I think about athletic trainers as healthcare providers reporting to individuals who have no medical expertise, no medical background or anything like that. And the athletic trainer, rightfully so, is really focused in prioritizing the safety, the health, the well-being of the patient. And then the athletic director, naturally, their priority is the success of the athletic program, right? And so more of that win at all costs type of mentality. And when you think about those two values, there's a lot of friction there. And I think the medical model does a wonderful job of really aligning those values so that the athletic trainers are reporting to individuals with medical backgrounds whose priority is also the health and well-being of the athletes. So my vote would be the medical model. I don't know if Steph agrees or disagrees, but.
Totally agrees. The definitely that medical model. I mean, unfortunately, that's just not the landscape in which sport is going to follow. So the reality of it is athletic trainers are going to really face this role incongruence where they've been trained medically, and their kind of mantra or value belief system sort of falls in athlete second, human first, and trying to really promote that. And I'm not saying that the coach at 80 or anything is not necessarily looking at it through that lens, but they really are there for the athlete first. And so a lot of their decisions are going to kind of be based on that. Now, that's not to say that, right, that the athletics model is what exists. So I think that there can be a paradigm in which that is successful. And I think where we've seen that is in the schools that don't have football. Right. And they can really create a model where they take a lot of what's happening in the medical model and apply it. BU is one example that does a really wonderful job. They don't have football, they have hockey, but they've been able to truly establish this medical model within the sport model or the athletics model. And that sort of has seemed to kind of work for them. But I 100% agree with Alicia.
And I love that thought too, because I feel like I focus more so on maybe the medical model being the right model and that the athletics model stinks. I'm not saying that at all. So I appreciate that perspective. I think you just got to have the right people in the right position for those, institutions that have the athletics model, and just having more of a collaborative mindset and wanting both, right? The athletic trainer is not there to keep the athlete out of, or, from participating. They obviously want the team to be successful too. So I think I'm sure the athletic director wants the health and safety of the athletes too, but it's just so like finding that middle. I think if you have people in both positions, medical and non-medical, that really kind of can compromise and want the same things and collaborate in a positive way, then the athletics model can definitely work. Yeah.
So follow up, what can athletic trainers do to advocate for using the medical model or to change over to this model?
Yeah, so I mean, the reality of it is that the athletic trainer is the low man on the totem pole. So I don't know that they are going to change the landscape and the hierarchy. I'm going to talk a little bit about workplace fit. And I think that I'm sure we'll get around to how we address some of these things, but workplace fit is sort of this concept that doesn't happen naturally. It's like like basically what happens is an athletic trainer is like, oh, I love my job. And then they kind of take stock. And so one of the things I encourage my athletic training students very early on in the interview process is like, stop just thinking that they are interviewing you and that you're right. You're always so fixed on like, I have to tell them why I fit, why I'm good and what values I bring. And we kind of don't focus on, well, is this work setting really important for me? Does it align with my values and my belief system? And so, when we look at, there's multiple levels within college sports, right? And then we're also talking, there's multiple levels within the high school sports setting, and then type, where you have boarding schools, prep schools, public high schools, private high schools, all those things. And so I think what's really important is an athletic trainer at making sure that their value system, right? Like, do you thrive in a situation where there's going to be conflict resolution and butting heads? So we do know that a lot of times athletic trainers who say, well, I'm in the Division I setting is because I love the pressure. I love this. And right. And so then maybe that aligns with their conflict resolution, their approach to athletics, their approach to athletic training. And so I think that I don't know that we are going to change or advocate, and we can, but until a team physician says to an athletic director, like, athletic training services are going to be funneled through student health services, right? And then that works for that setting. So what happens when you get to a high school, right? You've got a nurse, right, the team physician isn't going to always be at a high school setting. So I think workplace fit and making all the pieces as a puzzle kind of fit together are what really important. So taking sort of the things that make sense in an athletics model and applying it to and using the medical model and infusing it. So maybe it's more of a puzzle piece coming together. But I don't know that we as athletic trainers are going to change that. We are just breaking ground on changing salaries and compensation. So I think the reality of it is it will be really challenging for us to change over to a permanent medical model.
Yeah, I agree for sure. But I also think if you think about at the individual level, like profession wide, we might not be able to change all institutions to a medical model. But I would argue, I think that if you are at a place of employment that has an athletics model right now, hasn't considered a medical model, like I really think it is appropriate when you find the right time, right? I think to have a conversation about, have you guys thought about transitioning to a medical model? These are the benefits and things along those lines. And I really think in order to do that, it really starts with prioritizing building relationships, and it starts with prioritizing building trust with administrators, with coaches, with healthcare providers in your area, and things along those lines. And once you get those stepping stones in place and you build those relationships, it's going to allow for key stakeholders, I think, to kind of see the value of the contributions of you as the athletic trainer, of the athletic training staff. And I think in that, they're going to be maybe more open to listening to your ideas, which in this case would be pitching for maybe a shift in organizational structure. So while I agree with Steph wholeheartedly that is there a lot that we can do as athletic trainers to change an organizational structure? Maybe not, but I think we can absolutely start the conversation. And I think that really starts with just, and this goes for anyone jumping into a position, and even maybe more seasoned athletic trainers, when you have new people coming in, new coaches, new administration. Like I can't emphasize the importance enough of just building relationships. And I feel like this is probably going to come up continuously in our conversation today, but I just think that that's a really important starting point.
So the next question, we were talking a lot about how the athletic model is one that is mainly used in the athletic training profession. So in those settings that follow the athletic model, the main concern is possible conflict related to the athletic trainer reporting directly to the athletic director, who has a stake in the wins and losses of teams. In these situations, the AT may feel pressure from the athletic director to return a patient to sport before they are ready, or to encourage care that is not in the best interest of the patient. What can athletic trainers do to reduce or resolve conflict related to leadership with a lack of medical knowledge? And how can they prevent the intimidation from superiors in making medical decisions?
I think I'm going to jump in, Steph, if you don't mind, and then I want to hear from you. But I just think it connects so nicely with my whole speech about building good, solid, effective relationships with the people that you work with. I think it's about building trust and starting there. I think it's about having strong communication skills and establishing that clear communication with the people that you work with. Educating the stakeholders about your role as the athletic trainer, your scope of practice, what you bring to the table. And I think in that education of stakeholders, if it's the athletic director who's the problem, right? Maybe the one who's doing a little bit of the pressuring or undermining or whatever it may be, kindly reminding the athletic director or whoever is pressuring you why you're there, right? And I think providing a rationale for the decisions that you're making. If the athletic director, for whatever reason, is not happy with the decisions you're making, I think sometimes instead of just communicating the what, we can communicate the why, right? And I think if we have a rationale and provide a rationale for why we're making the decisions we're making, it's going to help provide the athletic director with some insight into your clinical reasoning. It's going to provide the athletic director and demonstrate your knowledge and skill set that you have, which will hit home the point, I think, that you are the one that's qualified to make those decisions and not them, while not stating that directly. So I think that that's probably the first thing that comes to mind for me is always when you're making a decision, explaining the why and providing the why behind your decision can be very helpful and very effective. I've personally heard of, in my research, some athletic trainers who have taken a bit of a more collaborative approach with administrators and with coaches. I know we didn't really talk specifically about coaches yet, but in terms of compromising where they can, so that as long as it doesn't negatively impact the patient's health or the patient outcomes, right? Is there an area where I can maybe compromise as an athletic trainer and let them see that I'm willing to work with them, not against them, right? That my role is, I guess, to keep athletes safe and to keep athletes playing. That is, I don't want to see them out, right? But I need to do it the way that I need to do it and get them back in the quickest and safest, right? That's the most important part way possible. So I think it's a lot of a rationale for all decisions that you make. And if there are areas that you can compromise with administration, with with coaches without sacrificing patient health and safety, that's kind of a way that you can meet in the middle, I guess.
Yeah, so I mean, I would say that the AD is going to be more involved at the high school setting, but commonly, I actually don't know that the athletic director is going to be our true issue. I think it really goes back to the coaching staff. And so what do we know about relationships with coaches? I think we know that they want to be heard. They want to feel like they are in control. And so I think honestly for us, it's staying calm in the moment, right? It's establishing some ground rules around conflict resolution. But I think a lot of times what's happening is we're not listening to one another. So really it goes back to active listening. So active listening is, this is what I'm hearing you say, am I correct? And they can kind of navigate that conversation and make sure that everyone understands either what the issue is or what the conflict is. And then basically each party coming to the table and say, well, this is what I want to see happen. And the other person saying that. And then it's the athletic trainer, as Alicia mentioned, knowing where those compromises can be made. So maybe it's like, okay, so we're not going to, like, I know that like 7 times of ice treatment today isn't going to get my athlete back on the field tomorrow. But if the coach feels like that's what works, okay, so today we're going to do 7 ice bath treatments and we're going to do this. And I said, and then, but tomorrow, if they're not able to do A, B, and C, like we have to agree that we got to do that reevaluation or it's not going to happen. So I do think it really is making sure that we remain calm. It's not personal. It's not about us, right? And so then after we feel like everyone has actively listened, we understand the issue at hand, we collaboratively come together. And then at the end of the day, it is teamwork, but the athletic trainer needs to know where to be creative and where the lines can be permeable and where they can't. But at the end of the day, the coach just wants to feel like they're the ones that led the charge. And so that's great. And I also like, we're talking about this like this, right? So, right, we're really talking about the Division I setting and the professional sports setting. And I do think that we've come a long way, that there are so many other things that are in place, like especially at elite level sports, like right now there's independent evaluators there, and there's other people that can be in there to help advocate for the athlete themselves. So I do think that there's so many other things that are at our discretion. And we're probably really talking about these issues from more of the elite level competitive where money's on the line. And if we were to maybe look at the D3 in the high school setting, some of these things aren't necessarily there's still issues and still need to be dealt with, but I think the gravity of what we're having the conversation is more at that level.
I love that you bring up a lot of the issues relating to coaches, because my next kind of topic is actually going to dive into interprofessional conflict, and that has a lot to do with coaches. So we're going to talk about interprofessional conflict. Athletic trainers take part in a great deal of interprofessional collaboration every day. A good standing interprofessional relationship between athletic trainers, coaches, officials, administration, and other medical professionals is key to an efficient work environment. Unfortunately, in many settings, athletic trainers may work with coaches who pressure their athletes into return to play before they are functionally and mentally able to return. What can athletic trainers do to better educate coaches who may be pressuring an athlete to return to play after an injury before they are ready?
Do you want me to go?
No, I mean, you went first last time.
You got it.
Yeah, education. I mean, so at the end of the day, like, honestly, it's about being human, right? Like that, the coaching relationships, like we have some data on like, how do we manage like workplace conflict? And obviously it's mostly about return to sport, but it can be a whole bunch of other things. It's honestly just open, effective communication. And honestly, it's like, right, us not talking above the coach's pay grade, and it's establishing that collaborative relationship. So, right, I think grassroots, right? We're talking about the early career professional who's getting their first job, and they're going to work with this coach. I mean, the reality of it is establishing that relationship really early on, like getting to know the coach, them getting to know you sharing your philosophies, and having some transparency around that. it's also you kind of going to your own direct supervisors and saying, hey, like this, mentor me and communicate with me, like how you navigate those tough situations, I think is really important. I think another thing that's probably really important is seeing the coach seeing your ability to clearly communicate, but then stick within those boundaries around what you've kind of communicated. So one, like, right, if there's a medical emergency and you're available to respond, great. But like if you are saying to a coach, hey, from 12 to 1, I'm doing X, and whatever that may be, right? And you keep that, right? They're also kind of taking you serious because I think you're establishing some clear boundaries and healthy boundaries, and you're kind of staying to that. So, I mean, we've talked about education, we've talked about value, and I think that's critical. But I really think like establishing like some consistency, like weekly meetings about injury updates. It could be you going to the coach asking about what the week ahead is like, and kind of doing that, or even saying, hey, I have this athlete who this is where we are. I'd like to get them involved with X. What can you see us doing to bring them into practice? So I think it's like establishing meetings, establishing how planned communication, and then making sure that the coach feels like they have some buy-in communication when it comes to like navigating the athlete's return to play.
Yeah, I feel like relationship building and communication just keep coming up because they're major themes when it comes to conflict resolution, and I think preventing conflict from happening in the first place. I'm just going to reemphasize what I said earlier about also communicating the why instead of just the what, and really providing your rationale for why you're making the decisions that you are. And I also think beyond that, because I feel like I will just stand on that soapbox forever if I don't get off that topic, is finding the people who have or will have your back. And leaning on them and building solid relationships with them. And the reason I say that is because I had a personal experience when I was working at the high school. And I've shared this anecdote in different platforms, interviews and media and things along those lines. But I was working a varsity college football game, and we were getting blown out, like totally blown out. It wasn't even close in terms of the score. It was probably like mid-third quarter. And our quarterback, who had a history of ankle sprains, sprained his ankle in the game and couldn't even put a ton of weight on it. Like, it was not even a question that he should not be in the game. So I pulled him out. And the coach was not happy at all with my decision for whatever reason, just was very, very angry with me, screamed at me, you don't know anything, you're not a doctor, like loud enough for parents in the stands to hear. We had actually observed students that day who were interested in athletic training, and this is the experience that they were seeing. And I was just distraught. It was early on in my professional career, and I was visibly upset. But our team physician was there, and I looked at the team physician and I said, can he go in? And she said, absolutely not. And I said, okay, there's your doctor's opinion. It was the same as my opinion. I said he couldn't go in, and you wanted a doctor's opinion, and you got it. And she said the same thing I did, right? But I say that experience because she had my back in that moment, number one. And number two, the athletic director saw that I was visibly upset, pulled me away from the situation, talked to me at the end of the game, checked in with me. Hey, are you okay? I'm going to handle it. Don't worry. And end up having a conversation with the coach, and the coach apologized to me the next day, and we talked about it. So I think having good relationships and knowing who is going to have your back in those moments are going to be really, really helpful in kind of keeping your spirits up when that happens, because it's probably going to happen, right? It's just the unfortunate reality of the profession. And if that happens so often, like if that happens so much, I don't think a lot of people would do what they do in terms of athletic training, right? But there are such higher moments that keep us doing what we're doing. And it's just, it's unfortunate. It's an unfortunate reality that sometimes those situations can escalate and turn into something like that. But in those moments, it's better to have the people that you know that you can lean on and can support you through those moments. And, you made the right decision. That was the right thing. And right, just kind of that validation, I think, can be really, really helpful. So those would be my things, is again, providing a rationale for your decisions that you're making, and then find the people who you know who are going to have your back and maintain strong relationships with them.
Thank you. In an article that you were both authors of, results showed that secondary school athletic trainers were more likely to agree that they felt pressured by the coaches than other athletic trainers in other settings. So why are athletic trainers in the secondary school setting more likely to have interprofessional conflict?
Yeah, and I think it's an interesting question, because we just talked about like the heat of the moment in like a college setting where there's jobs on the line and things along those lines. But you're right. And I mean, we did find that there's still a good chunk of athletic trainers in the secondary school setting who are facing conflict. And I think that's multifactorial. I think there's a few reasons for why that's the case, but one of them, I think, is just the nature of the secondary school setting. It's a bit of a beast, to be honest. Most athletic trainers in the secondary school setting are on an island. They're the only athletic trainer working there. Some schools have more than one, right? But I think largely a lot of secondary school athletic trainers are working on their own. They don't have another athletic trainer next to them to kind of rely on or pick their brain or anything like that. So I think at times it may feel like athletic trainers working in the secondary school setting are on an island by themselves. There's a lack in a lot of ways of a hierarchical structure. I think the support networks for athletic trainers in the secondary school setting are either absent completely, like they don't have a support structure, or that support structure is largely non-medical, which only goes a certain way, right? They try to understand, but they might not fully understand because they're not living the day-to-day in terms of being in a medical profession and being a healthcare provider like you are. So I think that's part of it, maybe is the support network. And then I think the last thing I'll speak to is the just sheer student athlete to AT ratio, right? I think at the secondary school setting, especially if you're the only one employed, there could be 800, 900, 1,000 athletes depending on the school, and there's one of you. And as much as you want to give the best possible care to all 1,000 of them, you can't. You physically can't do that. And sometimes that is upsetting to coaches, that is upsetting to parents, that is upsetting to the student athletes themselves. So I think it's just a lot of the times we need to find resources elsewhere. And instead of really doing the job that we want to do ourselves, I say we, for athletic trainers working at the secondary school setting, because they simply don't have the bandwidth, they don't have the time, because there's one person and there's one of them and 1,000 athletes, right? So I think that could also potentially play a role in it. But parents are tricky in that setting, and I could talk about parents forever, but I think that's part of the problem.
Yeah, I mean, I also think that in the secondary school setting, there's so much turnover so like the relationship building is cyclical. I think that the hours, like, I'm just thinking like, right, I have a son in high school right now, and like thinking like, how often was the athletic trainer available? And so like a lot of times it's like not a consistent message, like, well, why is this athlete out today, but this one's not? So I do think in some level the conflicts happen because the day-to-day contact with the coach is probably not regular. And so like the coach is like, well, the athlete was fine yesterday, like, why can't? So I think a lot of the conflicts and the pressures are happening just because the consistency in interactions is not consistent. And so trying to navigate those challenges, although there's, coaching certificates, I think at the college level, there's probably a little bit more training, support. There's multiple coaches, right? So I think there's like a tiered system and stuff like that. So I just think that the secondary school setting just has so many challenges with parents and coaches and ADs, and then also developmentally for the student athletes and their thought process. So I think the conflicts happen for a multitude of reasons.
So in your study, you guys also found that secondary school athletic trainers and newer or part-time athletic trainers were more likely to agree that they had issues with coach compliance and return to play decisions. These are the athletic trainers who haven't had the time to establish those relationships, and so they're facing a lot of conflict. So what would be the best response of an athletic trainer in the event of a coach who is distrusting of ATs or discourages their athletes from seeking treatment due to potential withholding of competition?
I'll jump in.
Go ahead.
Okay.
It's short. I think it depends on your relationship with the coach. That's the problem. And also the athletic director or another administrator, principal, whoever it may be, right? I think if you have a good relationship historically with the coach, and this is a one-off, like kind of a, I don't know why this is happening type of situation, I think you go directly to the coach if you're comfortable having that conversation and kind of just addressing it head on. But I think if this is a repeat offender in terms of the coach, and maybe you've tried to communicate directly to the coach and it hasn't been successful, or they continue to undermine you, or whatever, tell the athletes not to go to you, or whatever it may be, and it's becoming a chronic issue, but don't wait that long, I would go to the athletic director if you have a good relationship with that person, or another administrator at the school. Like, if going directly to the source is not working, you got to take it to the next level. And I think it's totally appropriate and within your scope to go to the administration, and especially the athletic director who's hired the coach, and say, you know, this is what's going on, and I really need your support. And could we have a meeting with the three of us, or whatever it may be, to discuss my concerns and kind of what I'm noticing, and also get their point of view. I think could be a helpful way to go about it.
Yeah, so the secondary school definitely creates an interesting paradigm, but no matter what organization you're at, so there is human resources. And so built in within human resources is like individuals that can help you with conflict resolution. So in the secondary school setting, it's kind of knowing who your employer is and going to them. But in the higher education system, there's two places to go to. So first is there's an ombudsman, and he can help you manage conflict resolution, like in generalities, but it's usually specific to like employment issues and navigating it. But a lot of times, right, these things, as Alicia said, don't wait, but we usually wait, right? So we're people pleasers, we're agreeable, we're conscientious, like, so we kind of wait. So not that the ombudsman isn't helpful, they're trained in conflict resolution, and they are not, even though they work for the university, they're not employed by the university. So it's confidential, and they're really helping you like role play, problem solve with the problem, and helping you kind of go to the conflict. But in some cases, you may have stress that's related to this. And so they also have employee assistance programs. And those are designed for therapy sessions. So like, right, you're able to say like, I have this conflict with this coach. It's not getting better. This is how it's making me feel. And there's some level of like navigating through therapy and cognitive behavior stuff like that either could help you just say, this is how it's going to be, and I'm going to navigate, right? Like, but there's an addressing of the thing that's happening outside of the workplace. So that's also, I think a lot of times athletic trainers are unaware of the resources that are available to them, because going back to right, when you get hired, we always go through like athletics onboarding, but we don't always go through our human resource onboarding and sort of the things that are at our disposal. And so I would encourage athletic trainers to make sure that they get properly onboarded and go to the human resources orientation or whatever offerings, because then you can know what things they have built in for workplace, we'll call balance, harmony. And so those are things that are important too with conflict resolution.
Those are great points.
Thank you. So our last topic that we're going to dive into is interpersonal conflict. A constant battle for athletic trainers seems to be getting athletes to be compliant with rehabilitation and return to sport protocols. What can athletic trainers do to better motivate an athlete who doesn't want to consistently perform their rehab exercises?
Do them with them. Just kidding. I mean,
it's an option.
It is an option. I mean, listen, grassroots, get down, Brax Tath, do it with them. I mean, the reality of it goes back to like, why am I more prone to burnout versus not, like, or, you know, so it's all individual. Like, that's the best part about athletic training is that we really have built relationships. And so we sort of know what works. So rehab compliance, motivation, it's understanding what motivates them. But it's also asking the question, like, right, we talk about mental health check-ins. We talk about like seeing the whole person, like, well, why don't you want to do your rehab?
Yeah.
Honestly, it's like motivating your kids. Like, I mean, like, right. Okay. I asked my kids to clean their room 7 times and maybe on the 7th time it gets done, but like, why aren't you cleaning your room? Like, oh, you wanted me to do it with you, or you didn't know where to start, or you felt overwhelmed. Oh, cool. Well, let's go. So a lot of times, like we want to just like solve the problem, but we don't know what the problem is. So I think like navigating any of the things that have to do with our athletes is like, why don't you want to be here today? Or like, okay, well, so if you don't want to do this exercise, what if we did this? And like, so that it's sort of just kind of like understanding the why before you problem solve. And also asking, like, my goal is to do X, but I don't know how to get you there. So what are some ways that I could help support you? Because how I might want to be, like, supported Like if someone asked me to clean my room, I clean my room, but right, but like my kids, they don't want to listen to me. So like, why aren't you listening to me? Right. So sometimes it's just a matter of understanding how they want to do things and then being creative with that.
If Steph had a microphone, I'd tell her to drop it, because I don't really know that I have much more to add to that response. I feel like she was the winner of this whole podcast. That was incredible. Because it was really, there was a lot of what I was going to say in her response, just in terms of.
I didn't pay her, by the way. So this isn't like
She didn't.
This isn't like some like long lost. She was my doctoral student. Like, no.
I don't get anything from saying that. I'm just saying it because it's fact. But
also, I got 3 kids. I'm an athlete. I've been injured. I've like, right. Yeah. Like it's all that. So
you can make the connections for sure.
Just be real and figure it out. Like we're a detective. Like honestly, athletic training is all about detective work and asking the right questions.
Yes. And you have to be the one. And you have to be willing to ask the questions and just go for it. Like there can't be any hesitation, because you don't know what's going on from their perspective unless you ask. So I think it's definitely asking the questions. And if for whatever reason they're not motivated to do the work, the rehab, why and what is going to motivate them. So it's all about having those conversations. So I'm not even going to say anything else because Steph killed it.
So when you have those athletes who might have more of like a mental reasoning, whether it's depression or anxiety, that's preventing them from performing their rehab or participating, at what point should other resources or other health professionals be brought in?
I mean, in my mind, it's never too late.
Yep.
And earlier is better. But I think it also depends on your setting. Like if I'm thinking about the secondary school setting, I think you can definitely start with guidance, like the guidance counselors, the guidance office, and kind of go from there. If we're talking, and I'm saying this because I am becoming very familiar with Colby College in Maine, and their athletics program and the services that they have for their athletes, and they have a mental performance coach on staff. And I've just heard wonderful things about Bo. He's a wonderful resource for the athletes there. And I understand that not every institution can have a mental performance coach on staff, but I think it's been a game changer for the athletes in terms of because as athletic trainers, we learn some of the stuff, but we're not trained in mental performance. We're not trained in diagnosing mental health conditions we can recognize. But other than that, it's like we refer them. We be that support person for them, but we refer them. So having somebody on staff who is educated and trained and has certifications to be a mental performance coach is a wonderful resource. So if you end up at a place that has that person, and maybe if they're not employed at the institution, but they're somewhere in the area, I think that's always a great resource beyond, mental health professionals, because mental performance coaches are not mental health professionals, right? I think there's a difference there. So getting down to the root cause of the issue and figuring out, is it more mental performance? Does this person need more of a mental health professional? And kind of figuring out which route is best, if not both, right? So I think it's just being connected in your area and using the resources that you have, but also being open to maybe more creative solutions if it's mental performance related. But earlier is better.
Yeah, I mean, so as Alicia pointed to, it's like, right, when it's never too early to recommend it, but it's a couple things. I think that it's right. We are trained to recognize the signs. So are they harming themselves? Are they going to harm someone else? Like, are they demonstrating those early signs that we know are related to depression and that sometimes it's, so knowing that, right? Second is it's also just trusting your intuition. Like I would say right? So like if I'm like 1 week in and they just tore their ACL, like I'm like, okay, they just tore their ACL. I'm not worried because they're not naturally. But if I'm like a month post and like they're not going to class or they're not doing those things, okay, I know depression and it happens, like it's common. And now we're at the 4-week point, like they need to have someone to be referred. And I also think it's also being completely like, hey, I've struggled too. It's okay to go talk to someone and starting that conversation really early so they can have some self-awareness of like, they're not sleeping well, they're not doing that. And then based on the age, it's getting parents involved and educated early, and really encouraging them to notice the signs. So early is always better, but also trusting your gut and your intuition when it comes to when is it time to get help.
So my final question for both of you is, What advice would you have for me as an aspiring athletic trainer?
Cori, what a great question.
Thank you.
I mean, advice would be specific. You want us to talk about conflict resolution, establishing your passion. I mean, here I'll give 3 recommendations, the boxes. Okay, right. So the first one we talked about workplace fit. You got to figure out where you fit, right? And don't expect it always to be the first time, but you're really early on in your navigation, and right. So like, open-mindedness to all your clinical experiences will allow you to kind of see what you're looking for. So that number 1 right there, like, be sure you're interviewing as much as you're being interviewed. Mm-hmm. The second one is build your pack. Right. So that is mentors and support networks and all those things, because those people are going to listen to you vent, and they're going to commiserate with you. They're going to tell you when you did a good job, because this is a very thankful, profession. Right. They're going to be your stress relievers. They're going to help you solve problems. They're going to let you go to concerts when you have your team practicing, because they're going to cover for you. Right. So that's the second one. And the last one, honestly, is really like healthy, like boundary management. And within that, meaning like you're a whole person. So don't create some boundaries around me time, family time, work time, and sort of embrace those roles. And remember that each one of those roles, kind of the enrichment theory, brings you satisfaction, happiness, fills your cup. So when you're in them, be 2 feet in them, and recognize when there's time to have 1 foot in one role, 1 foot in another role, because sometimes we have to create that balance. So those are my 3 recommendations. I mean, we could be here forever. I could give you a lot of them, but if I had to break it down to 3 in my 20 plus years of, that would be what I would say.
Gosh, you did it again. So good at this.
I got one more. I got a 4th one.
All right, go ahead.
One more thing is always find things personally and professionally. Like, right, like I'm a runner, like I have a goal of different races. That's for me, right? That's protective of me. But professionally, like I'm now doing study abroad, and I love, like, it's a new perspective of my job, and it continues to fuel my passion. So number 4 is continue to kind of either have goals or try new things, because that will help you be personally and professionally rejuvenated. Now I'm done.
God, are you sure? No, yes. I'm kidding. Those are all wonderful pieces of advice, and I don't say I wish. I heard all of those things from you. I feel like at some point in my time at UConn. But I think, Cori, more like at boots on the ground practice level in the job advice. Well, do you know what setting you're interested in practicing in, or do you not sure yet? And that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I came into this program thinking I really wanted to do professional sports, particularly football or hockey.
Mm-hmm.
And after doing my clinical rotations with Division III and high school, I have no idea.
Okay.
Because I like them all. I think they all have great pros and great cons. So
Yeah. I think each setting does in its own way. I only ask because I feel like I'm drawing back on my experience at the high school. So just know that that's the perspective that I'm coming from. And if you do end up in a high school, great. There's not going to be much of an orientation. I'm going to be honest. It's going to be very rare if you find yourself at a place that there's an orientation and you meet with the athletic director and all the coaches, and they're like, this is the lay of the land and this is how things work. I literally got the keys handed to me from the athletic director, and he said, here's the keys, have fun. I didn't know who the coaches were. I didn't know anything. I was walking the halls, and if somebody had like a high school name, sport, I was like, are you one of the coaches? Oh, hi, I'm Alicia Lee, or I think I was Pike at the time. I'm Alicia Pike. I'm the athletic trainer. Thank you. So like, if you don't have a formal orientation, you're going to need to be that person, right? And that was completely out of my comfort zone, but I was like, all right, here goes. I'm the athletic trainer, fresh out of school. Like, I got to do this. So not being afraid to get uncomfortable and push yourself out of your comfort zone and form those relationships and introduce yourself to people, like that's going to be so important when you're first on the job and stepping foot in the door for the first time, is like, know who the people are that you're working with and start building relationships with them. And a lot about starting, I'm going to be honest, is going to be a little uncomfortable, right? There's a lot of unknowns. It's not the most comfortable process, but if you know the people that you're working with and you build relationships with them that you can just go ask a question whenever you need to, that makes it a little bit easier. So I think that would be the first one. And I think just from a conflict standpoint, because I know that we're talking, this was about conflict, you know, in general, is trust your gut, stick to your guns. You're there for a reason. You have the education, you have the knowledge, you have the skills, your clinical reasoning is on point. So trust your gut. And if anyone is questioning you, you need to stand up for yourself in a professional way, right? Yep. I'm speaking directly to you, Cori, as a soon-to-be grad female, right? Unfortunately, there's a lot more conflict that comes at newer grads, female athletic trainers than their male counterparts, or athletic trainers who are more advanced or what's the word I'm looking for? Seasoned. And that's for a variety of reasons, but don't let people walk over you. Just really stick to your guns, trust yourself. You're the athletic trainer. You're going to do an amazing job, right? And just, I think, kind of stand strong on your feet, and everything will be okay. So that's my advice when I reflect on my personal experience.
Thank you. As we wrap up, I would like to give each of you an opportunity to promote either any new research you've published or your contact information if you'd like, for the audience members who might have questions. So I'll give you guys that time right now.
I'm going to be honest, my research is in limbo right now. I'm working on analyzing some data and getting a manuscript out, but anyone is more than welcome to contact me. So my email is alicia.lacy@maine.edu. And I'd love to hear from you. I'm happy to network and have a conversation professionally or personally or whatever it may be. So don't hesitate to reach out.
A lot of my time is spent reading manuscripts because I'm the editor-in-chief of a journal that is soon to be called the Journal of Athletic Training, Education and Practice. But I do have some data looking at resilience and how resilience impacts burnout and what demographic factors may be associated with higher or lower levels of resilience in athletic training. And always welcome to contact me, stephanie.m.singe@uconn.edu.
Thank you. Well, Dr. Singe and Dr. Lacy, thank you once again for taking the time to meet with me today. I appreciate your contributions to my research as well as my education, and I hope to work with you guys in the future at some point.
Thanks, Cori. This was wonderful. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you.
Good luck with everything.
Yeah, good luck.